Hello and welcome to Then What Happened. Observation. Observation is a basic function of the scientific process. One of the major things that a scientist does is he's trying to come to a conclusion, a resolution, uh, figure out the scientific aspect of something, they observe it. A lot of observation goes on in that process and some intense observation. But how much observation do we do in our own life? As we go about our day, and in this time of technology, we learn from one another, and we should. But sometimes right in front of us are things that we need to observe from others that will help us to do a better job, to live a better life. When you see someone who seems to have the handle on it, who seems to have it figured out, watch and listen. As I was growing up, I had the opportunity to work for some very interesting people. And they weren't people who were going to make the news. They weren't people who were going to be famous or important in the scheme of the world's view. But they were people who had ideas of how to make jobs smart, how to do things smarter and not harder, how to work in a way that would help things to function better. I learned a lot of skills from people who I could just watch them do their thing and how they went about it. My mom was a great cook. In fact, in my opinion, probably the greatest that ever lived. We loved the way she cooked our style of food, and from my area of the world, that was very important. Watching her cook, and there were 5 of us kids, and none of us were off the hook when it came to walking through the kitchen or being called to the kitchen and say, here, stir this while I do this. And so through observing her making these different things, I got interested in cooking and still do a lot of it today, really because I observed her. My dad knew a little about cooking and he could survive with it, but my mom, she was the one who knew all the ins and outs, and with her limited kitchen, with her limited pots and pans and utensils, she could turn any meal into a great meal, no matter how many of us were being fed. It seemed like she could always make it great and make it enough. Watching that, watching the little shortcuts, watching how she did things, and she would say, now, you always want to do this. And it wasn't like we were just listening to it. We weren't taking notes. We weren't writing it down. We were observing. So who and what are you observing? Are you watching too much of the negativity of people's lives? The people who aren't doing it, the people who aren't cutting it? Because we can get caught up in that. We can learn to complain too much and be observing always what is going wrong in the world. Start observing what's going right. Watch who's doing it. Watch who's making it happen. Listen to those people. They may not be the ones that are most famous, but they're the ones that fit in your category, the ones that make you want to do better. I had a college professor that I know I've talked about on here before. He was always saying things that would trigger your mind to think deeper in a subject. Oh, he would cover the material, and he would definitely cover what was in the chapter of the book. But he would go so much further than that. He would relate an idea of sociology to a real life experience he had had. He would connect it to a friend. He would connect it to a family member and say, are you aware that this happens in the world and that people connect here? And when he started talking about diversity and other cultures, he talked about it from his standpoint of knowing it himself. So what are you watching? Who are you watching? Don't get caught up in always watching what is going wrong. The drama in the world is going to always be with us. But the observation of those who have it right, that's where your thinking needs to be. That's where my thinking needs to be. Pull up those people. Whether they're people of history that you can observe through the writings they left or the stories that were told about them, or if it's someone that is right in front of you, a fellow employee, a boss, a sibling, a relationship that you have. Watch what they're doing right. Make that a part of your day to day. See if it don't help you. See if it doesn't give you a motivation to be better. Thank you for joining us on Then What Happened. Like us, subscribe, please comment. Have a great day.